I just realized that fall of 2021 marked the end of my 10th year in real estate. I've worked on a variety of deals ranging from big projects to one of the world's biggest projects and met lots of people along the way. I've had my successes, but way more failures, and in general, I've grown wiser. Have I matured at all? Come on, 10 years is a pretty long time, but it's not nearly as long as my... Halfway through my engineering degree, I was rethinking my career path. Real estate was hot back then, so I added a real estate finance minor. I set two goals. One, don't buy a car before I buy a property. And two, buy a property before I turn 30. So what did I do when I graduated? Not real estate. At the age of 29, I checked off the second goal and I bought a 3-unit, mixed-use building in my hometown in Long Island for $775,000. I put down a chunk, and since the building didn't have a proper CO, I got seller financing for the rest. The seller gave me a 5-year, interest-only loan at 6%. The building's NOI was 7%, so it was cash flow positive. My real estate career had started. Also, as of this filming, I still don't own a car, but I do have a pretty sweet folding bike. I learned basic day-to-day maintenance on my property, working side by side with my handyman. But that was just a side hustle, because my secondary hustle was management consulting, and my primary hustle was running my own tennis, e-commerce, and retail store, which is how I met Stan Gale. He bought a few rackets and we started playing tennis together. Turned out he lived a mile down the road from me and my parents, and his grandfather founded the Daniel Gale Agency, which his dad built into one of the largest real estate brokerages in Long Island. But then Stan took things to a whole nother level with his company, Gale International, which by the time I met him was almost a decade into building a 1,500-acre city from scratch in South Korea. He also mentioned that he was working on a small condo project in Manhattan. And so I asked him if I could intern and do some consulting for him. He would teach me real estate development, and I would do some social media and strategy consulting for him. He said, sure, I'll hit that like button. I started by building out Gale's web and social media presence and setting up their new office space on Madison Avenue. Meanwhile, construction started on the small condo project, which was 21 West 20th Street, a ground-up development site for a 35,000 square foot, 13-unit luxury condo. The budget at the time was $44 million, with a projected sellout in the low $60 million range. I would have had to sell rackets for 100 years to achieve that kind of profit, so I just sold the whole store instead. I began working full-time for Gale, and I moved into Manhattan. Construction was underway at 21 West 20th Street. I was learning a lot about architectural drawings, permitting, approvals, and acquisitions. I also started learning a lot about smart and sustainable cities by studying the history of Gale's other project, Songdo IBD, which featured 80,000 apartments, 10 million square feet of retail, 50 million square feet of office space, including South Korea's tallest tower for a few years, a central park with a canal, a Jack Nicklaus golf course, and a cultural arts center. But I wasn't there just to learn. I attempted underwriting my first deal, the Corinthian in Midtown West. It was an 800-unit condo, and the remaining 144 sponsor-owned units were being sold in bulk by the Spitzer family, and it was being marketed by Bob Knakal. I tapped my finance and engineering background to build this massively complex Excel model with a VBA macro that could automatically run scenarios where we combine units to sell for a premium, because that was the hot thing in the market at that time. The deal looked profitable. So a few weeks later, I'm sitting in this room with Elliot Spitzer, Bob Knakal, and Stan was being super encouraging and supportive, and he talked me up and let me show off this pro forma. So they're watching this pro forma iterate through a bunch of scenarios, clearly disinterested, and Bob Knakal cuts to the point and says, we just want your best and final. We put in an offer for $140 million, and we lost to another bidder by $1 million. As construction continued on 21 West 20th Street, I dipped into my potpourri of work experience to build out the website and print collateral for the project to kick off pre-sales of the penthouses. I also produced a bunch of videos featuring the project's interior design architect, David Mann, and I accidentally published renderings of the project early on Facebook, and it was immediately picked up by Yuri O at BuzzBuzz Home, which led to articles appearing on Curbed and The Real Deal within an hour. That threw our marketing schedule out the window. Oops. By the way, if you don't know who Yuri is, you'll find out in about 2 years. But that also probably means you're not subscribed to this channel, so why haven't you hit the subscribe button yet? Meanwhile, I got heavily involved in the technology side of Songdo IBD and visited the city in person. I became Gale's resident home automation and prop tech expert, which came in handy that summer when I met Brad Hargraves, who had just founded Common and was recruiting people. So I did some part-time technology consulting for Common using my home automation expertise. Later that year, I got my real estate salesperson's license, and I started focusing a lot more on deal sourcing. I tried originating a JV on a condo deal in Hudson Yards with another developer, and in the process, I met Ryan Serhant and Frederick Eklund, 2 out of the 3 brokers on $1 Million Listing. I'm pretty sure they were just as excited to meet me. The deal fell through. Back on my Long Island property, I finally received a legal CO, instantly boosting the value of my building. My loan was maturing, but I had been paying it off in large chunks, and by mid-year, I owned the entire thing free and clear. Construction topped out at 20th Street, and we launched sales of the 9 two-bedroom units. They sold out really quickly. 2 of the penthouses sold at around $4,000 a square foot. I happened to move to an apartment 40 feet away from Luis Ortiz, thus successfully meeting all 3 brokers on $1 Million Listing. I'm pretty sure he found me annoying, because every time I saw him, I kept asking him to sell the remaining 2 penthouses. I spent a large chunk of the year trying to put together what would be my most ambitious deal. A $500 million condo complex, hotel, and Jack Nicklaus golf course and country club in my hometown at Oheka Castle. Just like in previous years, the deal fell through. With 21 West 20 nearly sold out and no new deal to work on, I wound down my time at Gale and set out to start my own firm. I went through a lot of contacts I had made at that point and decided to hunt for properties with Yuri O. I took a loan out against the equity on my Long Island property. Combining that with Yuri's cash and her investor's equity, we bid on 424 West 47th Street. We closed at $8.05 million at the end of the year, finally ending my deal drought and kicking off YD development. We spent a full year in permitting and planning. Leveraging my contacts at Common and knowledge of sustainable tech from Songdo, 424 West 47th Street was going to be Common's first sustainable co-living building in Manhattan, which landed me front page coverage on Curbed and The Real Deal with Brad Hargraves. Construction started in the fall. We continued hunting for deals, but no luck, until I landed 2 deals back to back as part of a co-GP partnership. The first was a co-living gut rehab at 340 Clifton Place in Brooklyn. It was 50% bigger than 47th Street. I only served as an owner's rep on this one and didn't put in cash. The second deal was a multifamily value add in Greenpoint, Brooklyn, and was 4 times bigger than 47th Street at 38,000 square feet, and it had a total project cost of $34 million. After a year of due diligence and negotiations, we closed in December of 2019. Physical construction completed at 47th Street. YD was finally going parabolic on the growth curve. We got a swanky office space at Industrious signing in the first week of March. The pandemic hit. Engineering and fire alarm sign-offs at 47th Street delayed the opening until April of 2020. We opened 340 Clifton 2 months later. Everything was on lockdown. So I launched this YouTube channel. Market rents tanked 30 to 40%. Our NOIs completely off. We barely got to use the office. We rearranged the entire construction schedule for Greenpoint. Yuri was stuck in Korea and deals kept falling through there. In 1 year, YD went from parabolic to flatline. I stopped taking a salary. PPP and EIDL loans kept us alive. Greenpoint's construction kept going, just delayed by a few months with a November completion date. I spent the entire summer trying to revive the parabolic growth curve with a $70 million, highly amenitized, net zero energy, single-family lakefront vacation home development. Like in so many previous years, the deal fell through. I injured my back. With no deal pipeline and only a few small investor commitments, Yuri resigned. I'm wrapping up YD soon. It was such a disastrous chain of events that I actually made a song about it. I started doing management at 47th Street. It was going pretty smoothly till the lawsuit started. Wait. Then I slipped a disc, investors pulled out cause of risk. My business partner left and quit. I fired my super easy talk COVID. YD has no future properties. I'm pivoting the company. And now this channel's technically just D. Hey! And that brings us to now. The way I see it, every developer will go through a market downturn if they have a career lasting longer than 10 years. So this is just a bump in the road on a much longer journey. I still haven't decided what's next, but unlike my 20s and 30s, I've decided to plan ahead for the next 10 years, so I'm taking my time. If you want to follow along with what happens next, then hit that subscribe button. Stay curious, noobs.